Everyone, good afternoon and happy Thursday, February 2nd. Welcome to the Yoga Corner Chats. I am Shelby Phoenix. I'm a yoga teacher and life coach and owner of the Yoga Corner. And I help you find unshakable self-trust and manifest a lifestyle as a yoga entrepreneur. Today on the Yoga Corner Chats, we are joined by my friend and former client, Kaitlin. Kaitlin is a Nature and Mindfulness Wellness guide, yoga instructor, breathwork facilitator, and founder of Taking Root. Taking Root programs guide students to connect with themselves, others, and nature through nature-based education and mindfulness activities. So without further ado, I would love to welcome Kaitlin.
Hey, Shelby.
Hi, Kaitlin.
I'm great.
How are you doing today?
I'm new to this live thing, so
You're doing perfect. Welcome. So, Kaitlin, before we get started, would you mind if we took a couple of deep breaths together? Okay. And anyone who is joining us live or watching the replay later, I invite you to take some breaths with us as well. So if it feels okay in your space to close your eyes, relax your shoulders, soften your jaw. Take a deep breath in through your nose, filling your belly with air, and emptying out your mouth slowly. Another big, deep belly breath in through the nose. And get completely empty. One last big, deep breath in, biggest breath today. And let it go completely. And whenever you feel ready, gently open your eyelids and come back into this space. So Kaitlin, I would love to give you the opportunity to share a little bit more about yourself and your business.
Thank you for that, Shelby. So my name's Kaitlin. I am the owner. Oh, somebody waved. of so what Taking Root is about is really guiding students to get outside. A lot of my programs are outside because it's a lot of nature-based education practices. So really getting students outside to connect to themselves, connect to each other, and connect with nature and the world around them. So I guide students, typically teenagers and then adults. So I have sessions that I'm in school and I'm running during like their enrichment program. So again, running those like nature-based education and mindfulness sessions. And then I also lead monthly adult nature and mindfulness hikes. So really working to get students to, and when I say students, this can be all ages, right? To really ground down. So working on those techniques of like breathing techniques, meditation, we practice yoga, we'll go on guided nature walks, maybe do some like plant identification, and just really being aware of like our body awareness, spatial awareness, and yeah, connecting both worlds, outer and inner worlds.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So the theme of this talk today is educator burnout to entrepreneur. And one thing you and I have in common is that we are both former educators, like meaning in schools. So can you share a little bit about your story before you became an entrepreneur?
So going into education is actually my second career. So this will now be my third career change, I guess. So before I went into education, I worked as a wetland scientist. My undergrad was environmental science, so that's where my love of nature education comes from. And then that job didn't feel right to me. At the same time, 7 years ago now, which is crazy. And I just loved working with kids, right? I loved, that was the main part of being a teacher, was that connection piece with students. I brought in a lot of my yoga and mindfulness in the classroom as well. And then when I was at school, I worked at Portsmouth Middle School. I taught 7th grade science for the past 6 years. I actually wrote a grant for an outdoor classroom. So I knew that was where my heart lied. Like I knew it wasn't always going to be for me. Like I knew it was a stepping stone. So I was like, okay, if I'm not doing that yet, like how can I bring that here? Because I know that everybody needs it, right?
Right.
So that was really cool. And then this past year, I feel like I'm kind of fast forward. Well, while I was in school, I ended up staying, get my master's in education and furthering like my yoga certifications as well. And in this past year, I took a leave of absence to really just take the leap to see what this would feel like and be like. So I started my business Taking Root, as I mentioned. And I also am still an educator. I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade science through VLAC, so online. So definitely like a different kind of journey to get into education.
Yeah, such a like I can relate to like changing careers and also like pulling things from different, you know, different skills or experiences from my careers and bringing them together into my business. When you were an educator, I'm wondering, how did COVID affect you, your classroom, and your students in your school question?
Well, to be honest, the thing that I loved the most, well, shouldn't say loved about COVID, but we ended up having a little bit more of a flexible schedule as teachers and students. And I know this was crazy for parents, especially because that's a big change compared to expecting your kid to be in school 5 days a week to we had like learning days on Wednesdays. So I kind of had a taste of like this alternative schedule and what that alternative schedule would be. Sorry, this right, my face right now. And I was just very stressed. I was super burnt out. I was teaching yoga after school. So I'd be teaching students all day, teaching yoga after school. I ran a teen yoga club program. In the past, I did like donation-based yoga for staff. So I was just spreading myself way, way, way too thin. Going on in the world, right? That was toxic stress, but was going on in our world. So I remember sitting in my classroom, and I just started like making a website for what I wanted for my business. Cause I knew where I was going. I just didn't know when it was going to happen. Kind of lit a spark under me to do that. And I know you've mentioned before, like it really makes you know that you are not in control of everything and things will happen. So it's like, okay, I'm afraid of not being in control taking this leave of absence, but I'd be in control if I stayed in my secure city job. Like, who knows?
Yes. I'm wondering because like for me, when I was in burnout, at least, you know, it probably happened in cycles over the years of teaching, but when I was in burnout, I wasn't immediately aware of it. When did you kind of notice that you were in that place where something needed to change?
I mean, I would have days where I'd come home and like just need an ice pack and no stimulation. And like those happening more frequently. I had migraines, and it just wasn't good. I picture having a family and I picture having a different life. This isn't sustainable if that's what I want. And to be honest, I really didn't notice how burnt out I was until this school year. So this fall was my first fall in 7 years not being in public ed. And now like having that step back and now living in this schedule of flexibility for myself and like really honoring my body for where it's at and like the cycles of nature and everything and just really living in alignment with nature and noticing how burnt out I was. So not being in it, I guess, to really realize like, wow, like this is what it feels like to have energy and like this is what it's like to be able to be in the sun and
Oh yeah. One thing you said earlier I resonated with, and I imagine a lot of other people resonate with, is that at the same time that you were feeling it like very stressed out about how COVID was affecting you in your job and your life, it was also like a taste of like flexibility or like a glimpse into, you know, what could be, and also like the almost like F it, like there's no stability, so like let's go after it. What do you notice about that, like being in that space of like,
so it definitely
figuring that
was
out?
terrifying, right? I mean, that's the whole scarcity mindset of like not knowing what the paycheck's going to be or what it's going to be. So I definitely had to work through a lot of those fears. But once I like started thinking about it, I would just feel how excited I would get. And I was like, okay, this must be right. And then little things just kept happening, or like connections, like you and I, like the things were just like aligning in my favor, that I had to do it. And I just felt like the timing was now. Like I just really felt pulled to it. And as soon as I decided it, I felt so great. I felt like I don't know, I was lit up, if you will. I felt high. I was so...
Yes.
Yeah.
What was the final straw for you when you decided, to take your idea for a business from like something you were in the back of the room typing on your computer to something like you wanted to take an action step towards?
What really got me to decide to do that? I guess, I just thought now is the right time. I just was really called to it, and I just listened to that intuition. I listened to that hunch. Like I said, I knew public ed wasn't always going to be for me, and I was just really leaning into combining both of my worlds, because I wanted to do both of them, but I couldn't do sustainable.
Right.
And I went for it.
So you took the leap, you took a leave of absence, right, kind of before the summertime started. So what is it like to be a brand new entrepreneur, like who just, left their job? Like, what does it feel like to be in Kaitlin's shoes when she just took the first leap in?
Yeah, that was definitely, I was like, what am I doing? Who's going to sign up for this program? Like I had all those self-doubt beliefs running through my head, and I still get those popping up, but I'm at a much more confident location right now. But yeah, I just had so much of like, what am I even doing? How am I going to do this? Who's going to help me? And it was great that I worked with you right in the beginning too, because like that really helped me kind of set my path and get a little bit more grounded and have that support right in the huge. And then using like other supports, and of course like my family and friends were incredibly supportive. So I just really leaned. That Kaitlin was terrified, but as from a teacher, like having that regular schedule to then, like, oh well, here you go. Like now you haven't been in a regular routine for 7 years. So it definitely took a little bit to get used to and kind of figure out my schedule, but I leaned on my supports for sure.
Yeah. It's so funny. We talked about this a few times, I think, like how teachers like lives are planned out down to like the minute. And when you don't have that, it's like it's time.
Oh my gosh. Whereas before, 2 more minutes, so the next class switches. Then I have this. Then I have a break here.
Right. And you're always like 30 seconds behind.
Too, like you're doing time management on top of teaching kids time management.
Right. And managing their time. Speaking of that, what do you think has been the most challenging part of your transition from being in school full-time to being an entrepreneur full-time?
Well, I guess like in the beginning, it was definitely figuring out my schedule and what it was going to look like. And then throughout, I guess the theme would be challenging, trusting of, okay, it's my fall is going to look different than my spring, especially this being my first year, right? This was my first fall. This is going to be my first spring. just kind of trusting the unknown about it, and me doing what I can on my end to put it out there. Heard my dog whining over here by the door. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is really trusting that your finances will work out the way that they're. If I needed other finances, I have plenty of skills I could figure out along the way. So like this year, I've definitely been trying to lean into that word for my business and my personal life, is just trusting.
Yeah. And then also, like, I think it's a challenge for a lot of entrepreneurs that switch from, like, I mean, even just the example of your schedule, like, I have to create my own schedule, and like, what am I doing with my time? And I always try to like treat myself better than my, previous employers have treated me. Like, how can I be the best boss to me? So in your business, how do you take care of yourself so that you don't become a burnt out entrepreneur?
So that's a big one. Because especially as a new business owner, I feel like I want to say and obligated to say yes to everything, but that fill up my schedule and bring me right back to where I was, right? So I'm just really being thoughtful about my day and what I want my work day to look like. I'm a pretty productive person, and like, I feel like a short amount of time, which is a great gift that I have, and that's usually typically in the mornings. So like, I really work now more with what works best for me. It's really cool to like be able to lean into that, and then to find how productive I am when I'm giving myself the rest that I need, not overbooking myself, and leaving that time to rest, or leaving that time to then prepare for the next thing, So that's been real big to do throughout my like weekly schedule. And I know like what in the afternoons, how I'll be a little bit more tired, so I wouldn't book anything like too crazy then. And it's nice to be able to do that, like that's such a gift to be able to walk my dog after I eat lunch for the afternoon, and then go back and do some more work too.
Yes. So we talked a little bit about challenges of this transition. What do you think has been the most rewarding part of your transition from educator to entrepreneur?
Definitely a flexible schedule. The whole thing was stressful, but like that ability. And I mean, I remember writing myself like a pro-con list before I was leaving school. And like my number one was like to have more of a flexible schedule and like work for myself and how I want to work. Yeah. And that has been such a pro. And I've noticed that so significantly in my mental health. Outside in the sun during the day, being outside way more. And that's what I'm trying to teach, right? To get started. So it's like now I'm actually really living what I've been saying, and now it feels obviously more aligned because I'm able to do it. I'm not in a school system the whole school year. So that's definitely been very rewarding.
Yeah. I remember like in the fall you were planning a trip to Arizona.
My husband and I went to Arizona to visit my brother, and we backpacked the Grand Canyon, and that was great. And I remember sending the video that I like took on Instagram to my principal, because he loves hiking and being outside, and he was like, "Wow, you don't regret leaving, do you?"
Because that trip wouldn't have happened if you were at school.
Right, because all of our vacations are during their vacation time when flights are expensive.
Right. What skills from your career as a classroom teacher are you able to transfer to your career as an entrepreneur?
Right. And I feel like that's something that I need to reflect and be grateful for. Like, I took all these steps to be here where I am today, like all my education pieces to be here. So like, I'm a very organized person, and that has helped significantly. Like writing lesson plans, what they made you do, like your first week of school. Like, I go back to that kind of skill and write myself what I'm going to do. Right. My like is spot on because I'm so used to doing it in a certain amount of times for school. So it's like, oh, perfect, 1 minute left. And that's like comfort, which I think like for somebody who maybe is an entrepreneur who didn't have that background, those are things they didn't have. those are huge. And I'm sure, I know you can relate to that. Hugely transferable, and like creating lessons, like where someone would be like, oh my God, this is going to take me hours. I'd be like, oh, 5 minutes ago, this is where we're going to go do a walk on pollinators and figure that
like I can whip one of those
like,
out of my back pocket.
Funny too, because like we always talk about teachers being flexible, right? Because you have to be. You're working with this one woman who I was talking to about working for her for an adult nature and mindfulness session. She's like, oh, well, are you open to be flexible if this happens? I was like, yes, of course. I'm from a school teacher. We are all.
The question in the opposite way, what is one skill that you've learned since becoming an entrepreneur?
Oh, geez. So many skills. I feel like they're more, to be honest, like feelings than skills, right? Like really lean into, like, as I mentioned, trusting myself so much more. Like I have to trust myself so much more being my own boss in business. So that's something I've definitely gotten since we first started working together, more comfortable with pricing. That's definitely something I need to work on, but that's not anything I was doing beforehand. So that's certainly that I've had to work towards for that too.
Yeah, I think that's really hard for like, well, everyone that I've talked to, all the yoga teachers I've talked to, like the money and the pricing is like really challenging, and not like the mentality around it. What do you think has been the hardest part about that for you?
I think the hardest part's been because I work with so many different people, like schools, Seacoast Science Center, private sectors. It's like my pricing, it's in whatever they're asking for, right? It can be varied. So if they're asking for a different service, then my pricing is going to reflect that. So that's definitely been challenging. And also wanting to put out like a fair rate that feels fair to me. And I know we've got like the energetics of what you're putting out there. So trying to lean more into that too.
Yeah. What would you say to other educators who are on the fence about making a big move, like changing careers
I have
or
a couple
starting
friends
a business?
who hopefully they'll listen to this when they're not at school, who are maybe that always go back, and that's what I was told to.
Yeah,
like, and I heard people like saying that, like, yeah, of course, like it's free to say that, like you're on the other side, but it's like it is so true. Like, there's always going to be a need for what you're putting out there. And I guess another big one, especially from an educator, and I know you can relate to this too, is like there's other ways to work with kids, right? Actual, meaningful ways to work with kids. And I feel like I'm now do it in a way that I've always thought was the best way, like getting them out learning, and like having them really connect with themselves, right? Because just like anybody, if you aren't in a centered place yourself, you're not going to be out here. So yeah.
I saw this video. I don't know where this lady was from, not America, and she was substitute teaching in America, and she was like blown away that like, you know, kids above 5th grade don't get recess. She's like, these kids are in a chair all day. No wonder they're jerks. Like,
yeah,
you need to be outside moving.
My philosophies in my classroom all the time was outside. I mean, well, yes, we go outside as much as we could, but always get them up and moving. They have so much energy, you know, and the sunlight's so good for them. Everybody, not just kids in school.
Yeah, I think people forget that teachers and students often, especially in where we live in New England, they go to school and it's dark and they get out and it's dark, and they do that for however many months a year. So that is like the basics.
That's a lot.
You need the basics.
Health. Like I mentioned how like I've noticed such a significant change in my mental health.
Yeah. When you go back to visit your teacher friends and colleagues, what do they have to say to you about your...
They're very excited for me. They love to hear how it's going, who I'm working with. They love to ask me if I'm coming back. But it's been really nice. I've gotten hired as my business to the school that I used to teach for, and I teach yoga to 6th through 8th graders and then adults right after. So it's really nice because I'm teaching some of my old students, my old coworkers who like have known that I've always done this, but now it feels really empowering and nice to be like, all right, I'm coming back on a way better energy level.
Yeah. So speaking of some of your programs, I'm wondering if you would please share with us anything that you would like that anyone listening could participate in, offerings you have coming up, services you have coming up, anything you want to promote.
So like I mentioned before, I run monthly adult nature and mindfulness sessions, and they're all outside and they're for 75. So I have one coming up this month. It'll be Sunday, February 26th, and that will be, I believe, 9 to 10:15. It's, like I said, 75 minutes, and that one's going to be at the Urban Forestry in Portsmouth. And I'm super excited to put this out there. I haven't announced it fully yet, but Spring Equinox Mini Day Retreat. So exciting. And so that will be in the beginning of April. If you want to follow me and message me to be on my newsletter, I'm going to be sneaking it out to you guys first in my newsletter community with a special sale because I appreciate you being there. And like I said, it's just a full day. So we're going to do some yoga, have a guided nature walk. There's a wood-fired sauna. You can do a cold there. Then you'll have a nice catered lunch from a local chef bringing in like nice spring equinox kind of themed meals. And then we'll end with like a visualization. I'm really excited about that offering.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. My skin started tingling when you said wood-fired sauna.
Yeah, you're gonna want that this weekend for sure.
Kaitlin, is there anything else you would like to share with anyone listening?
I don't think so. I mean, thank you for popping on if you're here. I know sometimes you record them, you're rewatching. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to respond back to you. And hopefully you're about this movement too. Nature-based mindfulness, baby.
Awesome. I'm going to repost this on my Instagram page over the next few days. It'll also be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and my YouTube channel. And I will make sure all of Kaitlin's details are included so that you can find her if you choose to do that. I highly recommend following her on her page at Taking Root EDU.
Say at Taking Root EDU.
Perfect. All right, friends. Kaitlin, I am filled with gratitude that we are able to collaborate in this way, and I look forward to more details about your retreat. Thank you so much for having me,
Shelby. This has been really cool. Bye.
Awesome. Bye, everyone.